Yeah, what the hell were you just talking about? Ordering green cards. Oh, ordering green cards.
Yeah, the green cards for the Theros. Putting the top 10 in order.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking like citizenship green cards.
Oh, I gotta mute the...
Oh, I need to put us in the right channel. Close this, and...
See, all I have on your channel is the Scorch Trials.
It's not long.
Yeah, that's just the... It's probably because it's resetting. What are we...
Apparently it's phenomenal.
Have you seen... You've heard that?
No, Jessica Gonzalez from the Entertainment Weekly says.
Oh, alright. Higher Standards, episode 42? 42?
41.
41.
Yep, last week was 40.
Oh, that's right, we went live. For some reason I feel like we did 2 weeks live already. Alright. Need that.
Still haven't heard jack squat from Renee.
Yeah, I mean...
There's no sound on this right now, right?
There should be.
Yes, there should be.
Because I had to mute it because I was hearing the delayed audio.
Gotcha. Oh, I've muted it, that's why.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to keep it muted.
Why wouldn't she just say something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, can you make it Bob?
Yeah, that's not hard.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Alright, Healy, you're super loud, and we are quiet, Jason, just so you know.
You and Chad are super quiet, and really, Healy is really loud. I know last week I tried to amp up my microphone output. I can try and do it again.
Alright, I boosted mine.
Yeah, see if you can...
Boost yours?
Well, Bob...
Speaker, computer.
It's always a process getting up and running.
Alright.
Oh, so Cynthia.
Alright, my bad. If you guys... No, you sound fine to me.
Yeah, you sound fine to me, I guess. Maybe it's just on the stream. Hopefully the recording will be more normalized. But I'm still going to try and boost my output. Because I know I always sound quiet every week. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Speakers, recording, microphone. Shit. Yeah, I've got it boosted all the way up.
Okay. What about your actual... Are you looking on your microphone levels on your computer or on Skype?
On my computer.
Okay.
Is there a place to change it on Skype?
There should be, yeah. Go to call quality information. You see that on the bottom right on the main screen? It's like, it looks like a volume button.
Is this in the Skype?
Yeah. Yeah, both of you guys can do this.
Mute your microphone.
Wait, where is this?
Alright, you see it where the selections are? Return on video, mute your microphone, add participants, end call, and then go all the way to the right. It's got call quality information.
Yeah, it looks like a little bar, couple of bars.
Yeah, like a volume, like turning up volume. Alright.
Oh, there it is, microphone.
Go to microphone, and then you should just be able to turn down your volume. Because the difference for me is I can turn the volume up on OBS, and they can hear me better that way.
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
According to this, I'm already turned all the way up.
Oh, you sounded like you just got louder, so maybe.
Do I?
Yeah.
Huh.
How's this sound?
You were really low.
You sound quieter to me.
Yeah, you're low.
Anybody watching on Twitch? How's Bob sounding now?
How's our audio? Say something, Bob.
Check.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sound alright to you?
Alright, that sounds fine to me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing I found for my settings, I already had it turned all the way up. Oh, wait, automatically adjust. No. There we go.
Oh, you're going to do it manually now?
It was set to automatically adjust.
Yeah, there you go. So you should be able to adjust that.
Yeah, I unchecked that. Now hopefully this will do this.
Cool. And you guys can hear me fine?
Yeah, you're fine. Your microphone's always super powerful for some reason.
Alright.
Okay, let's order these green cards real quick.
Ordering the greens.
So, Bob thought Courser should be number 1, and I'm inclined to agree.
Alright, I'm going to be the arguer and say that Sylvan Caryatid should be number 1. My argument is, because as soon as Nissa came out, Courser kind of went on the wayside. The Nissa Search For?
Yeah, but that's only been the last, month and a half?
Yeah, but Sylvan's never moved. Sylvan's like the 2-spell go-to.
Sylvan became not good enough for every obs on deck that was torture playable.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, it fell out of all the advent lists.
I agree with you. It should definitely be up there.
Like, we can make it number 2, but I'm pretty sure Courser's going to be number 1 here.
Alright, I'm typing it in. Crew fix. So number 2 then. Courser's gone.
Yeah, I guess Caryatid.
Alright. So all the mana ramps. Number
Caryatid 2 was great because it had hexproof, whereas in the old days, we had Birds of Paradise. It was always just like bolt bait, or just some kind of removal bait, where 50% of the time you cast birds and it's dead before you ever get to tap it.
Alright, we just got an update. I'm super loud, so I'm gonna adjust that.
Alright.
Let's see in settings. Yeah, and you guys are still low, so if you guys can adjust any more.
Yeah. Alright, I turned myself up a little bit.
Yeah, mine's turned all the way up.
Maybe OBS is overcompensating me. So I will turn myself down. And
yeah, because we're dealing with a lot of separate
like
audio inputs here, like because I'm recording through Skype and then you're broadcasting through OBS.
I think I might have fixed it because I put my desktop sound, which is what you guys would be coming through on. I turned that up on I gave that a boost, so hopefully that adjusts it.
Alright.
What is number 3? Did we come up with that?
We hadn't yet. Alright, I'm gonna try and put the mic closer to my face. I don't know. Like
you sound loud.
Seder Wayfinder, maybe?
Wayfinder's gotten a lot of play.
Yeah, it's still getting play.
Yeah. In fact, it got the reprint in 15?
Yeah. And you know, maybe you put Commune with the Gods there too, because it basically does the same thing. I think I threw that on my list, but it didn't even make it up there. Okay, never mind. We don't need it there then.
You did have your list, but that was just because I didn't notice it. Commune with
no, it's alright.
But we can do that as an honorable mention.
Honorable mention, yeah.
So some of the next ones on my radar are Genesis Hydra, Hornet Queen.
I think either Polukranos or Hornet Queen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Polukranos
is it. Number 4.
Yeah, because he was like
he was a 4/4 for 5, and I mean passes the vanilla test, and then you hit him with Nykthos, and it just gets ugly.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with what Jason said. Genesis Hydra next.
Yeah.
Cool. What?
And Hornet Queen, I would think.
All right,
yeah,
sweet.
Hornet Queen was.
Thanks, Devo, for all the help, man. Everybody sounds good.
Okay, so you think it was that change you made?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Genesis Hydra is off the list. So next, Hornet Queen.
Well, yeah, you can go with that.
Or what?
We don't have the one dork on the list.
Elvish Mystic.
Well, Elvish Mystic, yeah. But also the one tap it to untap a land.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, Voyaging Satyr.
Voyaging Satyr, yeah, because he was really important in the
Well,
devotion.
with Elvish Mystic,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that with 2.
Yeah, and maybe put Voyaging Satyr in the same thing, on 2, because they're all ramp kind of. I don't know. Does that make sense, or is that silly?
No, it does.
Yeah, I think we should probably just lump the dorks together.
Yeah.
Green loves its mana dorks.
Green.
Although I think pointing out that Elvish Mystic is a turn 1 mana dork and a big difference.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Format's gonna be weird without it. Yeah.
So Hornet Queen is
7.
gone. 7th place.
Eidolon would be my next vote.
Yeah.
Eidolon of the
Either
Blossoms.
that or Nissa. I guess Eidolon's
Oh,
all
yeah.
main.
Yeah, well, I mean, Eidolon was kind of like pigeonholed
It's all
in one
main
deck,
deck,
whereas Nissa was a sideboard card in several different types of decks.
Yeah.
Eidolon and Nissa.
Yeah, I'd definitely do Nissa next.
Yeah.
She should honestly probably be higher, but
Well, I don't know. That would be a big argument, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Eidolon saw main deck play, 1 deck, but it was a deck that did dominate for a while.
yeah. Before you came back, Chad,
Mm-hmm.
Bob and I were talking about Nalia because she was really important before Cons came out.
Yeah.
Like once Cons came out, she kind of just fell off. But if you remember, all the Green Devotion decks ran a couple of her because she was really important for pumping up your creatures, giving them trample, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
I would put Core to Calling at 10, probably.
Yeah, Court's probably needs in this list too.
All right,
Boon
so-
Satyr definitely gets an honorable mention, though.
Yeah. Yeah, he was another one who was much more
all right,
important
so
pre-Cons.
Saw play
Yeah.
post-cons, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it was Nylea, then Cord, then Honorables. Kameen's Honorable, Weapon Hunter, Nylea's gone. And yeah, Cord of Calling's gone.
You want to just move all those to the honorable mentions at the bottom after number 1?
Yeah. Makes it easy.
And then, Chad, did you do your top 5 for Battle for Zendikar?
No, but I can do that while we're going over the Star City
Okay.
stuff.
Speaking of which,
Ugh.
I don't know if we really even need to run through deck lists, only because none of these deck lists are going to matter in a week. We could just say what placed where.
Yeah, I like the fact that Sultai was second.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob and I watched the finals. It was not good.
Yeah, I was watching it as I was on my way.
So did you see the mono red guy mulled the 4 and won
No,
in game 1?
no, I didn't see that at all.
He mulled the 4 and then won game 1.
So I came back when Sultai won, and then the last game, and I was like, yeah, that's mono red.
And it's just funny, you know, that the season ends the exact way it started, essentially, with Mono Red winning the Pro Tour and then Mono Red winning this last Star City tournament.
Yeah.
So, yay, Origins, you did nothing. Except gave Mono Red a couple more tools.
Yeah, an amazing tool. Exquisite Firecraft is bonkers.
It's not even that card that's, like, really put it over the edge. I'm telling you, freaking Abbot of Carol Keep is the card that, like, made this a solid Tier 1 deck.
Yeah, alright.
Oh, yeah.
Though Exquisite Firecraft is also really good, especially when you have another spell that also does 4 damage
Yeah.
in the deck. Yes, I agree, Schmuck. Let's hope that Mono Red goes away for a while.
Yeah. So, alright, did you guys do the 20 seconds?
We have not. Let me just verify we're still recording. Alright, looks like we're still going. Yeah, let's go ahead and give me 20 seconds of silence, no typing while we're doing this.
No typing, you got it.
Alright, so start now. Alright, should be good.
Cool.
I just want to give one more quick glance over the show notes before we actually get started. So, okay, so Chad, do you want to talk about right from the get-go the YouTube stuff and everything?
Yeah, we can. After we mention that we're going to be live streaming each week, I'll just say it.
Okay. And then, of course, we'll introduce Bob. Then roll right into the Star City. Roll into the spoilers. And okay, yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, you guys ready?
Ready when you are.
Sure.
Alright, so give me another 10 to 15 seconds of silence, and then I will get us started. And we're back! Welcome back, everyone, to the Higher Standards Podcast. This is episode 41. I am Mr. Jason Roscom. With me each and every week is Chad.
Hey guys, what's up?
And Renee is still not with us. Last word we got from her was that they have moved into their new place in Boston. Hope everything's going well there. But we do have a very special guest on this week. A guy who has been on the show before. I cannot remember the episode number. It was somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah, I think it was 22.
22? Wow, it's been that long already?
It has.
Co-owner of Gamers Vault, a store that we've talked about all the time on the show, Mr. Bob Healy. What's going on, Bob?
Not much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah. So, we are live streaming this week again. This week we are not doing any real listener questions or interactions, but we're still going to be live streaming. And Chad, you want to hop into the YouTube stuff?
Yeah, so I found out that, and I don't know how I missed this, there's just a simple button on Twitch that allows me to post all my broadcasts straight onto a YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel with 0 videos, so Jason's got more of a handle on that, but I think we're going to start posting on YouTube, so everything that you guys hear in the car, if you guys don't get a chance to see us on Twitch, you can now go back and watch it, if that's something you want to do, if you want to see our ugly mugs. But yeah, it should be interesting going forward, and hopefully we'll be able to add in more things like animation or something like that going forward.
Yeah, I'll leave all that to Chad.
Yeah.
I deal with the audio. I don't deal with all this video presentation stuff. But, yeah, regardless, everything that we record now is going to go straight to YouTube every week. In fact, it'll probably be posted to YouTube before it's posted to MTGcast, I would think.
Even though you guys won't know that until after you hear this episode.
True, true. But
speak for yourself, Chad. I totally bathed just because I knew I was going to be on camera. I'm wearing pants right now.
Nice.
Okay.
Your camera angle. By the way, for everybody that's just listening, Bob's camera angle is horrible. He should turn it. He should turn it up so that he can go sans pants every week from now. Oh no!
I'm wearing pants.
Oh boy. Alright, so this week we had the last major standard tournament before rotation. We had the Star City Open in Milwaukee. And this is it. After this, there's nothing major going on with the Theros cards, legal and standard. So let's go over this last hurrah for the Theros and M15 block.
Farewell.
Do we really have to?
Unfortunately, we do.
Deck, do we have to do this?
We do. It's sad to say, and it was mono red, won by Jory White.
Yes.
This, looking at it, it's the Pro Tour deck. That's I don't see much different, if any at all. It's the one that's running a Singleton Heel Cutter in the main, 3 Zergo Bell Striker, and all your typical mono red cards. It's.
I was telling you, Jason. This is what happens. You go, you have a deck, you ride all the way to your tournament. You get there, you second guess yourself, and you go, "Oh, I'll just play mono red," and then you end up across the table from poor Sultai control player.
Yeah. And that's essentially what happened at the Pro Tour. We were talking about this before we started broadcasting. A lot of the pros at the Pro Tour Origins couldn't figure out how to break standard, so they just all played Mono Red, and Mono Red ended up winning the whole Pro Tour. And here we are, last tournament of the season, Mono Red still taking it down. So thanks, Origins. Appreciate it.
Well,
we got Scab Clamp Berserker.
Yeah.
Visit Firecraft.
Yeah. Oh no, we got good cars for Red. Don't get me wrong. In second place was Samuel Bratz, playing what, Chad?
Sultai Control, as Rob alluded to earlier. This was a pretty interesting deck. I enjoyed, just from what I heard about it, because I was only able to catch the last of the final games, which Mono Red kind of ran over them.
Yeah.
But let's just run through this really quick, because it's something that I don't think we're going to see again, but it's something that was pretty interesting.
Well, and something, too, we could take note of what cards are actually rotating from this deck as we're going through it. So
we've got 4 Den Protector, 4 Satyr Wayfinder, they're gone, 4 Jace Vryn's Prodigy, 1 Garruk Apex Predator, he's gone, 1 Ugin the Spirit Dragon, 24 lands in the Sultai variety, no Tomb of Yawgmoth here. So don't have to change that. 22
That's
spells.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. So
yeah, why not make one of those swamps an Urborg?
I guess he's not really worried. I mean, he's got the Hero's Downfall, so you would think he would want that.
He's got Hero's Downfall, he's got Demonic Pact.
Yeah. I don't know. So, speaking of, 4 Demonic Pact, so that's an interesting inclusion. I really like that. 3 Dig Through Time. And yeah, they're still here. 2 Hero's Downfall, they're gone. 1 Murderous Cut, staying. 2 Sultai Charm. 2 Languish. 4 Thoughtseize, they are out of here. 4 Void Snare, they're gone.
Yep.
In the board, we've got 2 Orbs of Warding. I heard that did some good work for him in the second game.
Yeah, in game 2 of the finals,
2 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Negate, 4 Pharika's Cures. Unfortunately, they are gone, but so Mono Red's losing a lot of stuff too. So
yeah, thankfully.
1 Sultai Charm, 2 Duress, 1 more Languish to finish it off, and 2 Self-Inflicted Wound. So, I mean, go ahead.
To your question about the Urborg, he's got 18 black sources and 24 lands.
Okay.
I mean, so,
but
maybe
I don't know.
I've heard that, and I'm not a giant Abzan player, but I've heard that the one thing that can hurt you in that deck is your mana base, particularly not getting black when you need it.
Yeah.
And maybe he just didn't want to give somebody that chance. I guess.
So you think maybe it was more to not help out your opponent?
It was a nice counter.
Okay.
That's good inclusion. Speaking of the mana base, we might as well go through this. 3 Temple of Maladies, they're going to be out of here. 4 Temple of Deceits, they're going to be out of here. And that's it, actually. That's going to be leaving. But yeah, the Scrylands are going to be gone. They're kind of getting replacements, but what's going to replace Scry?
Yeah, the new duels. Which actually, I think, honestly, with the fetches in these new duels, I think mana bases are going to be far better than they are now, as far as like getting colors that you need.
I think it's going to be easier on the play to get your colors, but it's going to be harder on the draw because of the Scry.
I mean, with no Scry, too, late game, smoothing out your draws gets a lot harder. I mean, drawing a Scry land turn 10, not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Whereas drawing a tap land turn 10 is like,
Yeah, it's got to feel pretty bad.
I wish this one gave me life. Damn it.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I think it's... Well, we'll get into this later when we talk about Battle for Zendikar spoilers and what's to come afterwards. In third place, we had pretty much the identical Mono Red deck. He's got a couple of different cards. Like, he's got 1 Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, and then a couple of Lightning Berserkers in the main. But other than that, it's essentially the same thing. And while we're at it, we might as well talk about the red cards that are rotating, since we kind of mentioned it briefly. Eidolon of the Great Revel is a big one.
Oh, yeah. That's the one that it's just let's build a deck around this, and they easily just can win.
Yeah, and even in my eyes, more important than that is Lightning Strike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you take a card like this for granted. There have been a dozen variants of this card. They've always been in Standard. Red and a colorless, do 3 damage to a creature or player.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have that effect anymore in Standard post-rotation.
post-rotation, 3 toughness creatures get a lot better.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no instant speed. There's basically no instant speed removal from them, I think. I haven't
Yeah,
looked at all the
there's
spoilers.
yeah, there's the Devoid spell that costs 3 and it's a sorcery, which I don't think that can't replace Lightning Strike.
No,
It's just
at
not
all.
nearly as good. Searing Blood, a card that got really good recently, is also rotating out, thankfully.
Yes.
Stoke the Flames, which is another huge
Yep.
card for these red decks,
Yeah,
is
that's
going
the big
away.
one.
Yeah. Though they
You know,
do.
in the board, Magma Spray's gone too, and with Hangerback Walker hanging around for 2 more blocks, 2 more rotations, basically. That's also painful.
Good point.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how good Hangerback Walker is going to be post-rotation. Like, okay, that's a cool Hangerback Walker you got. Here, I got Ulamog. What you gonna do?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of a stretch, but
True.
the fact that
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
suggesting that my 4/4 Hangerback Walker on turn 8 is gonna do it. Alright.
Yeah.
but the fact that we're going more towards a realm of exile and not destroy
Yeah.
kind of pushes Hangerback Walker away. I'm not saying that it's going to leave. It's going to be slammed into those decks, no questions asked.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Because while we're also getting exile, we're getting more sacrifice. So sacrifice is going to be able to, all right, you're going to try and kill my creature. Now there's 4 of them.
Yep. So, all right, let's keep moving on with the Star City real quick. In 4th place, a deck that I've really been enjoying, Jim Davis, that was playing Blue-White Control.
No surprise there.
Yeah, this is very very similar to the Blue-White Control list I was playing right after Origins came out. The only real difference was I wasn't playing Last Breaths. I think I was playing an extra in Hostilities, and I was playing the full 4 Banishing Lights too.
And I believe that if you were still playing in this current meta, you'd be playing Last Breath because of the walkers.
Yeah.
It's not a very good card, but you almost have to play it. You know? You
Yeah.
don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's a 2-mana removal that you can actually cast easily in this deck.
Exactly.
And you don't really care that much about giving your opponent life because you're just looking to grind out the game and then just eventually just destroying them
Yeah.
with like an Elspeth or something.
It's just narrow.
Yep.
That's my only issue with it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see Ojutai's Command is now getting the 4 of treatment in these decks.
The love that it deserves.
Yes. I told everybody. I told you all. But no, it looks like a fun deck if you like this kind of thing. I know a lot of people despise decks like this, but
I love this deck. I rode this deck to many F&M wins for a long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love this deck.
Yep. So get used to it because Control is not going anywhere, even post-rotation. In fact, I think it's only going to get better. As far as rotating cards, since we're talking about it, Elspeth Sun's Champion is going away, which is big. That's kind of this deck's finisher.
Yeah.
Last Breath that we talked about. Jace's Ingenuity, but there are tons of good replacements for that. Dissolve, but there's a pretty decent replacement for that
Yeah.
in the new set. And then Banishing Light, which, as far as strictly permanent removal, I know we have the Flash one that only exiles creatures. I don't know what we have for permanents. I still have to go through all the damn Zendikar spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, in order to understand it, you need to understand how, because you know that this was only played on mostly Planeswalkers, so you need to understand how the new Planeswalkers are going to interact.
Yeah.
While the ones we have right now are already creatures, the new Flash one might even be better.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Quarantine Field in Battle for Zendikar.
Mhm.
It's basically a 4-drop, but it's got a lot more upside, I would say, than late game
Yeah.
than Banishing Light does.
Totally. Moving on, in 5th place we had a Jeskai aggro. Jeskai, I think, is going to still keep almost all of its tools post-rotation, right?
Well, this is losing the Rabble Master, so
Yeah, but a lot of them have been getting away from Rebel Master lately anyway.
Yeah.
true.
I mean, I found myself, I've been playing it on Moto a lot, and I don't even think I have them in the board. No, I do, but they get boarded out all the time.
You've
Yeah.
been playing Jeskai aggro?
Yeah.
Like using
on Moto, on Magic Online.
Yeah.
And I started with Rabbles. I think they're in the board now.
Yeah.
Just better stuff to do.
Gotcha. And while this format's going to be slowing down, Soulfire Grandmaster is going to get that much better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, looking through this list, very few cards rotating. We talked about Rabble Master. Stoke the Flames, which we talked about before. Is that it? Oh, Lightning Strike.
Yeah.
Magna Spray, the one on Magna Spray goes away.
But other than that, it stays pretty well intact.
Anger of the Gods goes out of the sideboard. That hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Although they have a new one, it doesn't exile, but it's as long as you spend 3 mana of different colors, you can get a 3 mana, or a 3 board wipe.
Yeah, and there was the one before, I think it was from Dragons, where it was like for 3, it dealt 2 damage to all creatures without flying.
Yeah,
you've got some
Seismic
other...
Rupture.
Yeah, so you've got some other alternatives. But yeah, Jeskai's keeping a lot of its tools, so keep an eye on that. 6th place, Abzan Control. Thoughtseize is big for this. I think any kind of Abzan Control is kind of done because you're losing Thoughtseize, because you're losing
Courser.
Yeah, Courser too. Just the card advantage that creature generates is amazing.
So I think while Absint's going to stay a thing, like you said, Control is going to be very hurt for cards.
Yeah.
They might start going... Abzan might start going for a how many walls can I build so that I can get to the end game.
Yeah, like mid-range. Like just a quality mid-range deck, which I could totally see that.
I mean, I think if you look at the aggro shell on Abzan, it still has... I mean, so it loses Fleece Mane, but... It still has most of its other tools in the deck,
and it's getting 4 1-cost.
Yeah, I mean the deck is still solid post rotation.
Yeah, and you could just replace Fleece Mane with like Rakshasa Death Dealer.
Yep,
that's true.
Same converted mana cost with some upside.
Yep.
And then just since we're talking about it, looking at the 8th place list, Daniel Duan. Looking at the cards that rotate out of this, we've got a couple of Heroes Downfall. And then Fleece Mane Lion, and that's it in the main.
Loses a Herald in the side. I don't think that's a big loss.
Yeah.
Ajani Mentor of Heroes goes away. I mean, that... Yeah, you know, some decks... The decks that wanted it are going to hurt.
Yeah.
But
again, that's sideboard anyway.
Yeah, Thoughtseize, but...
So yeah, the Abzan aggro could still be a big player post-rotation. Because, they're losing very little. But I guess it just depends on can it stand up to... the big threats in the next set.
Yeah, while they're also going to gain Gideon in place of Sorin, so...
Yeah. And then, looking through the rest, we do have a Jeskai Dragons in 9th. We've seen variants of this before. It's just Jeskai running Stormbreath Dragons and...
Draconic Roars.
Yeah, it's alright. I mean, pretty decent list.
Draconic Roar is one of those cards that's going to be, I think, be very good in the next set. All you're losing is Storm Breath. You've still got plenty of dragons.
Yeah.
Just jam in a deck to get it to activate. And I mean, I've played a lot of Black-Red Dragons, and there's no better feeling than dropping that with a dragon in hand and just slamming someone in the face for an extra 3.
Yeah, and though none of them made the top 32 here at the Star City, a lot of people are talking Esper Dragons being a big thing post-rotation, because that's another deck that really doesn't lose much, and it benefits from a lot of those, you know, having a dragon card, like the 2-mana counterspell, things like that, so...
Oh, yeah.
And
Elvish Rallies here.
Yeah, we were talking about that before.
A lot of people are downplaying this on the group.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Because, I don't know, I think the Rally the Ancestors decks are just kind of cute little gimmicky decks anyway. And then I've never been big on Elves in this format.
I mean, if you can't... If you're playing a deck that can interact with it for the first 5 turns, which some decks exist, I mean, Black-Red Dragons, for instance, really doesn't do anything other than kill whatever you drop until turn 4 or 5. This deck can really get away with murder because you can't do anything against it. It combos off and hopefully it kills you. But you know, for most of the decks which interact from turn 2 on, like Abzan, Jeskai, I mean, you know, if you can't pull the combo off on curve, you can get smoked out pretty quick.
Yeah. The big thing they're losing is Satyr Wayfinder.
Yeah, and that's the fuel for these decks.
It just fuels all of those graveyard decks.
Yep. Okay.
And yeah, it's a lot of the same affair throughout the rest of the top 32. I see some blue-red Thopters. I see a green-white Constellation. Mono-white Devotion has been, yeah, it's been making appearances here and there. I think there was one that was even in the top 8, right?
Yeah, Sam Black played one a couple of weeks back at, I forget what tournament that made a top 8, I think.
Yeah, I think that was a GP.
Might have been a GP.
Yeah. But, so it's still around for now. But that's losing a lot of major pieces, too.
I think it does well post-rotation. I mean, I think you get some good one-drops. You know, Archangel... I mean, Archangel of Tithes and... actually, Vryn Wingmare can make life very, very difficult for people.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly with no more Courser to smooth out your land draws, Vryn Wingmare can really make life difficult for those decks that are just trying to, you know, to kill whatever you have early on, like an Abzan control deck. You know, and then come out in the end. So. Yeah,
I can see that. You lose the actual devotion mechanic and the Nykthos in a deck like this, so it would just have to be like a mono-white mid-range, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the Star City. I don't know. Do you guys want to really talk about anything else, or any standard decks that are still big right now that we're about to lose?
I just want to make mention, while we're talking about all the cards that they are losing, these decks are still going to be very viable, and as we've come to know, once a new set comes out, a lot of the same decks stay at the top once rotation is there.
Kind of. Like, well, I mean, I know that happens when new sets come out, but when an actual rotation hits, because I've tried to do this in the past, where I've tried to take a deck that was successful right before rotation, add in some new cards to substitute the ones that are rotating out and see if that worked, and a lot of the times it doesn't. Like, I tried to do that when Cons came out with a mono-green Devotion list, and I just got creamed by all the Jeskai decks at the Star City Open that first weekend.
I don't know, I think you have to look at, first off, like Chad said, the decks that lose the fewest amount of pieces, but then, you know, you also have to consider, particularly for, I think, this set, you know, a lot of people are talking about a lot of ramp decks, talking about how, you know, it's almost like when Ugin first made an appearance on the tournament scene. The first, I don't know if it was a Star City or was it a GP, the first big event where Ugin was playable, you saw all these decks that all they did was ramp to Ugin as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think that was the Star City.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, turn 5 Ugin, answer that. Can't. Alright, I win. Yeah. And so I think initially you may see a lot of decks that are, you can, as Jason and I were talking about, you can get a turn 5 Ulamog out with the cards that are out there. It's possible. You know, it's Magical Christmas Land, but turn 6 Ulamog even? Exile 2 lands? What if your opponent's missed a land drop, so he's now down to 3? That's not fun. And then, you know, very quickly you saw, with Ugin, very quickly you saw the format shift to kind of deal with that. It was kind of like a 1 or 2 week thing, and then it went away. Because I remember Dick was buying, my partner was buying Outpost Sieges, or not Outpost Sieges, Outpost Sieges just about as quickly as we could. Because they spiked up.
Well, are you talking the green rampy one?
Oh yeah, not Outpost Siege. Oh no, not Palace Siege. Frontier Siege.
Yeah.
There you go.
They ramped up to, like, I don't know what, crazy numbers for a week.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I think if I was going to go to F&M and I didn't know what I wanted to play, I'd look for a deck that lost the least amount of pieces.
Makes sense.
And, you know, and at least try and play that.
Yeah, which, as we're going through these lists, I'm thinking Jeskai and, like, an Abzan aggro seem to be the decks that are losing the least.
Yeah.
So
Esper Dragons gains big time. Its mana base gets a lot easier.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's the thing too with the fetches, the ally color fetches and the ally color dual fetchable lands. I think all of the shards are gonna get so much better. Your Jeskai, or not Jeskai, but your Esper, your Jund, Naya, because you've got 2 color pairs of each fetch and each dual to fetch with these fetches, and it's Mana's going to be a lot easier.
It is. It will be a brewer's paradise for the foreseeable future.
And that was the Star City Open. Sorry we didn't get into too much details, but honestly, you've all heard these lists before. Nothing really new or Cosmic came out. Plus, none of these decks are going to matter next week anyway.
Yeah, next week is pre-release. Week after that, we see all the brand new spoilers.
Yep.
Spoiled decks.
Yeah. Speaking of spoilers, we had the full spoiler for Battle for Zendikar come out this week. A couple of new interesting cards. One card that I really want to talk about that was spoiled on this last day was, let me scroll down to it, Bane of Balaged. You guys know what that card does?
What color is it in?
It's colorless. It's an Eldrazi.
Okay. Bane.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll bring it up for the viewers.
Yeah, for 7, you get a 7/5 Eldrazi creature, and when he attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents he or she controls.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it sounds really familiar. Sounds a lot like a mechanic that they said they were never going to print again in Standard.
They did, but they didn't. It doesn't say it on there.
That is true. Nowhere here does it say Annihilator, nor is it identical to Annihilator.
Well, Jason, it wouldn't say that because they said they'd never reprint it.
Right, of course. So, and this guy is an uncommon too. Now, I don't know if this kind of a card would really ever make an impact in Standard because of his casting cost, but it's got the potential to.
Oh yeah.
With all of the ramp we have, with cards like See the Unwritten, things like that, and this is exactly the card that they said they didn't want to print again. Yeah. And here it is, at an uncommon.
You sound like you've had years of therapy to get through this or something.
Well, no, the funny thing is I wasn't even playing during the original Zendikar block. That was the last year of my hiatus, was when Zendikar was out.
Yeah. And I think the big thing is, because of what people knew back then, this card is going to get play and it's going to scare people away. They're going to say, see the Unwritten into one of these, and the other player is going to be like, crap, I remember what happened before with Annihilator, and this is essentially Annihilator, so, oh man, I don't know what to do.
And yeah, I'm not the biggest limited player, but how good is this going to be in limited?
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's just disgusting.
I don't know. I mean, you got to see how the format plays out too. I mean, there may be better things to do with 7 mana than this. You know, I mean, I'm just saying. It's really weird when they spoiled cons and most of the cons block. I remember making a lot of assumptions that just weren't true. I remember looking at See the Unwritten and thinking that it was just nuts, and it may be now, but for the last year it saw some fringe play. And
in its limited format, it wasn't as good as everybody thought it was. So in limited, I see this in sealed being very, very good.
Yes.
But in draft, this will be one of those cards that, unless you start seeing that there aren't a lot of aggressive cards out there, you can take this.
Yeah. Anything? So we're gonna each go through our top 5 list, our top 5 favorite cards from the set. But before we get into that, were there any other cards that were spoiled this last week that you guys wanted to mention before we get into our lists?
So I'm gonna go to the newest spoilers because I'm almost not gonna.
Well, yeah.
I forget exactly which ones.
Yeah, we had like 100 cards spoiled in one day, so. And yeah, I'm still going through all of these spoilers myself and trying to process everything and kind of get a grasp for what to expect with the format.
I see a common that looks amazing.
What?
So, Angelic Gift, 1 and a white. It's an enchantment. Oh, never mind, it's enchantment. I was going to say with Zada that would have been nuts, but it's a draw card and enchanted creature has flying. So that's going to be really good in limited, but as far as standard comes,
it'd be good in heroic, right? Oh, wait, never mind.
Burns.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's one deck we won't miss. Yeah, I wish there was a heroic deck in the Star City, because then we could have talked about all the pieces that deck is losing.
Everything.
And yeah, we just read off the whole list.
I guess I shouldn't mention that the first deck I came back to this standard with was heroic, right? That would not be a good thing to mention here?
It's too late. It's gone.
Yeah. Let's just say you've seen the light since then.
Sure. Actually, to be very honest with you, I played it for a couple of weeks and realized that it was a combo deck, and I didn't even think it was a very good combo deck. It needed too many pieces to really make it work.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, any other spoilers you guys want to mention that aren't in your top 5 lists? There's a lot to take in here.
Yeah, there are.
think I'll stick with my top 5.
Okay. Then with that, we'll just move right into it. So instead of going through, again, 100 spoilers on the show, talking about which ones we think will be good, which ones we think won't be good in Standard, we're just going to talk about our 5 cards that we all like ourselves. And I think what we should do is we should each start with like our 5th. Like I'll read my 5th,
Sure.
Bob, then Chad, and then we'll go to our 4th, and so on.
Sounds good.
I will start. My number 5 card is Scatter to the Winds. It is the new 3 mana counterspell. It's 1 blue, and it's counter target spell, and then it's got Awaken for 6, and I think it's Awaken 3.
Yes.
I lost it. Yeah, it's Awaken 3. So you can counter something if you cast it for its Awaken cost, and then turn one of your lands into a 3/3 creature, which may not seem very important, but if you're playing like a real grindy control deck, that could be really big, because if you're keeping the board clean and you're countering their spells, turning your lands into 3/3s, you can eventually just swing in with a couple of lands every turn and just like ping them down over 4 or 5 turns.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think this card is really good. I'm sad to see that it's a rare and not an uncommon like all the other counter spells like this are. But
Okay.
I guess it's because it is that good. So, Bob, what's your number 5 card?
So I chose 2 because I think that they work together very well in the same shell, and that was Scatter to the Winds and Painful Truths. So Painful Truths is I think it's an uncommon, or is it a rare? And basically it's 2 and a colorless, 2 and a black rather, and it has Converge. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Painful Truths. So if you think about a shell like Esper Dragons, it's been a very long time in Standard. God, I can't remember when we've had a card that cost you 3 and let you draw 3.
Yeah.
I
Makes
mean,
sense.
now it's sorcery speed, but if you think about any 3-color control deck, which there will be a lot of, I've even heard of some Grixis decks that are being brewed. You know, losing 3 life is rough, but I mean, people played Read the Bones for a long time, and that was 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more for one more card. Hey, I would take it.
Yeah, and I think in most situations you would be more than happy to take that extra card for 1 more life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, unless you're playing against like mono red, you know.
I mean, I played a lot of blue-white control and played Divination, and this card far surpasses Divination.
Yeah.
So Scatter to the Winds I picked mostly for the same reasons, Jason. I mean, Awaken to me is a really interesting mechanic, because being a control player, it's almost like I feel like it's almost like you don't have to play a win con or less win cons. Because,
Right.
I mean, drawing, you know, a counter spell on turn 15 is a counterspell like Scatter to the Winds is great, because hey, you may have killed every win con I have in my deck, or most of them, and now I get another one, and you've got 1 card in hand, and I'm going to counter it, and then I'm going to kick it, and now I get a 3/3 I get to swing in with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it really allows you to brew a deck with less win cons and put more counters and creature and removal into a deck with it.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
and in late game too, it just gives you more. It makes the card a better top deck.
Yep.
Like if you top it way later in the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, Chad, what's your number 5?
My number 5 we already had mentioned. It was the Bane of Balageb.
Oh, okay.
And for the same reason I was talking about, the Annihilator, I just think it's going to scare people away. And if you see the Unwritten into 1 or 2 of them, Annihilator 4, that'd be crazy. And
God.
just being able to get that off so early, like we were saying in the past, being able to get to 10 is going to be easy on turn 5, so being able to get to something like 7 should be even easier.
All right, sounds good. My number 4 is going to be Ally Encampment. It's a land that was spoiled. It's been over a week now, but it's a land you can tap for a colorless or 1 of any color, and you can only use that mana to cast an ally, and you can pay 1, sack it to return an ally you control to its owner's hand. So it saves an ally from destruction. It helps your mana fixing as far as casting your allies if you're playing a 3 or more color ally deck. And I just love lands like this anyway. I love Sliver Hive. Absolutely adore Cavern of Souls. So I've always had a thing for lands like this, for tribal stuff like that, and I think this land is just perfect for that.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so my number 4 was Zada Hedron Grinder, which has, I know on your Facebook page, has gotten a lot of talk.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting card because I think it's either going to be nuts or a bulk mythic or rare.
Makes sense.
I think, you know, either somebody's going to find a way to just break this card wide open and do crazy things with it, or it's going to end up in the dollar bulk box. I mean, it's not. Strawbacks are, it's a 4-drop, so it's really not on curve, I think, with the decks that are going to want it necessarily.
Yeah.
It's got a 3 butt, which, you know, as we said, is better than it used to be post rotation. But I don't know. I just think the interaction is really interesting. I'm kind of excited to see if anybody really tries to play around with this.
Yeah, and I think the big question that this brings up is if you do like put this guy in a deck, do you build around him? I mean, do you put in a lot of spells that target creatures? Like, do you put in a full 4? Oh God, what's the red one? +3/+1, and you get to scry.
Titan Strength.
Titan Strength, or the white one that they get +1/+0, and you get to draw a card.
That would be crazy, and that is Defiant Strike.
Yeah, I mean, how many of those types of pump spells do you put in a deck like this? Versus how many creatures? Like, do you strictly build around Zeta? Do you just kind of like put in a few and hope it happens? But
well, if you talk about Defiant Strike, for instance, I think in a token deck, it's great. I mean, if you go, you know, 1-drop, 2-drop into, Hordling Outburst, you drop Zeta and you untap with him. Let's say, you know, you've only got 4 creatures left on the board, and you drop a Defiant Strike. You're now reloading your entire hand.
Yeah.
Even if you don't swing in. You know what I mean? Like, you just basically spend 1, draw 4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
thank you.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only other drawback, which I don't really think is a drawback anymore, is the legendary creature. So, because he's legendary, we tend to see less being played in a deck, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just see this straight 4 being played, only because Zergo Bellstriker was legendary and he's getting play. People are putting him in decks. So, I don't know. I feel like you're trying to build around him, but your basic shell is going to be the mono red aggro.
I don't know. I think Jeskai tokens would want him. I think, you know, you have maybe with a couple other ally creatures. I really haven't taken that hard of a look at him, but you have the ally land. You can bring him back. It's a man. It's, you know, it's basically like a Haven of the Spirit Dragon.
That's right. He is an ally, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyways.
All right, nice. Chad, what's your number 4?
My number 4, and I went on theme while I was picking mine. They are all colorless. My number 4 is Titan's Presence, and it's not coming up.
You'll have to remind me what that is.
Alright, so for 3, it's an instant uncommon. As an additional cost to cast Titan's Presence, reveal a colorless creature from your hand. Exile target creature if its power is less than or equal to the revealed card's power.
Right.
So with people that are wanting to play Ulamog, myself included, they are going to want to put 4 of these in the deck, because this is basically any type of removal spell for a creature that's problem.
The only problem is you're going to have to play a lot of colorless creatures. You know, a lot of big colorless creatures.
Yeah.
Well, remember, Devoid kicks in, so
yeah.
You know, you've even got those creatures that cost colored mana. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it's going to be pretty good in limited. I don't know how good it's really going to be in standard. I guess it really depends on if an Eldrazi deck exists.
Exactly.
Like a straight up Eldrazi deck that curves from the 2-drop all the way to the 10-drop. You know.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible. My number 3 card is Blighted Cataract. This card, I'm looking at this and I don't understand why more people aren't gushing over this card right now, because they came out with this whole Blighted series, right? And for example, like Blighted Step is tap it for 1 colorless, or you can tap 3 and a white, sacrifice it to gain 2 life for each creature you control. Seems decent. They have one of these for every color. The blue one, Blighted Cataract, is tap it for a colorless, 5 and a blue and sacrifice it, draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
That seems freaking amazing to me.
No, that was my number 6, by the way. That
Okay.
that got edged out, but that was number 6 for me.
Like, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, am I reading this right? Because this is fantastic if you get this in the late game.
Oh,
And
yeah.
If you're playing like a 2-color control deck, you might even be able to squeeze like 1 or 2 of these in a 3-color control list. But this is just phenomenal. This is the type of land you do want to top deck. If you're in top deck mode, be like, okay, I'll just drop it and then draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
I don't know. This card seems really, really good to me.
Yeah, and as I mentioned last week, this is one of those cards that I could see people putting in even if they're not on blue. Just try and put, because we have the lands that are both islands and X, they can easily just put this in so late game they have it.
And just like splash a little bit of blue.
Exactly. Well, they might even have the blue. Like, let's say you're playing a
Red white deck, and you've got a Mystic Monastery or 2, and they're just
exactly. Put those in, or put the new, I don't remember all the names right now, but put the Plains Island that's in there.
Yeah.
Because you can fetch it up, and then you have it.
Yeah. But this whole Blighted series, if you read all these cards, a few of them are really, really good, and I just cannot believe that nobody's been talking about these at all.
Yeah.
Blighted Fen's great too for a control shell.
Yeah.
It's a sack effect.
Yeah.
And the green one, it helps towards landfall because it gets 2 lands on the battlefield.
Yeah, and it's ramp. It's essentially ramp because you stack 1 land to get 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, keep an eye on these Blighted lands, and if you get them, hold on to them because these could be like your $2 to $3 uncommons,
Sure.
depending on how much play they see. But yeah, the Cataract, the black one, the green one, maybe even the red one. I'm not a big fan of the white one, though I guess that could save you in certain situations. But they're all fantastic. So, all right, enough about those. Bob, what's your next card?
So for number 3, I have the card that everybody knows and epitomizes the BFC series, Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's going to be in, I think, all of our lists. I probably got him lowest. I mean, look, so we've already said you can get him out turn 5, turn 6, that's Magical Christmas Land. Turn 6 is doable, turn 7 is easily doable.
Yeah.
I mean, just so think about this. No more Courser to smooth and Scrylands to smooth out your draws to hit your land drops. So missing land drops will probably be kind of more of a thing. I mean, there's ramp. There certainly is ramp. But for the decks that aren't ramp decks, you drop this guy on turn 7 and somebody's sitting with 5 lands, okay? And you target 2 of them? Oh my god.
Yeah,
I mean, you've just set them back. I mean, heaven forbid you get it out on like a turn 6 and they've got 4 and you drop 2 of them. Now they don't even have like removal to get rid of this guy.
Now remember, that's on cast though. It's not enter the battlefield. It's
Sure.
when you cast him.
Yeah.
So,
Even better.
but, well, I'm just saying, like, see the Unwritten, you don't get the triggers.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
But if you are hard casting him, if you're just like ramping into a bunch of mana and hard casting him, yeah, your opponent's gonna have a bad time.
I mean, basically what this card says is spend 10, get rid of whatever 2 things you care about, and then if you get to untap with him, win.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's how this card reads.
Yeah, and he really is the face of this set. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he is the premier card. He may not be the best card per se, but he is the face of the set for sure.
So I might as well say it. It's my best card. This is my number 1 pick.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And while you can get to him early, when we saw Ugin, everybody was like, 8 mana, no problem.
No.
So that's exactly what I see here. 10 mana, no problem. Because people are going to be able to ramp. People are going to be able to hold back with control. He's just going to be one of those cards that can be put in just like Ugin. And I wouldn't be surprised if both Ugin and him see play in the same deck.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I can see that. So, alright, that's
number
Bob. So, Chad, you're up.
So my card that I chose for number 3 was Duskstalker. And if you guys don't remember, Duskstalker is 2 black-red. He's a creature Eldrazi rare. 5/3, he has Devoid, as usual, and Haste. At the beginning of each end step, if you control no other colorless creatures, return Duskstalker to its owner's hand. So I really like this creature for a couple reasons. One, the card that I said before, Titan's Presence, it requires a colorless creature to be in your hand to exile another creature. So this creature essentially has Haste, what was the one spell? The Dash. Yeah, Dash, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So he essentially has Dash.
Yep.
You're going in for 5. Now, when it goes back to your hand, if you have Titan's Presence in hand, you also have a way to exile creatures, because it's 5 power or less.
True.
So I think this card is going to do really well. I think it's going to be really good in some kind of Jund shell, because you can get to him on turn 3.
Or even like a Rakdos aggro.
Yeah.
It seems like Red-Black really has a lot of good aggro tools. If you're looking at Mythic Spoiler, the next card down is a 3/2 for 2 for just a black and a red. It's the Forerunner of Slaughter. Oh. He was spoiled a while back. And you can also give him Haste for 1 colorless. So you get a lot of good aggressive cards like this. And, Rakdos aggro can really be a thing. Or, like you said, Jund.
Yeah, and you're right. This might just be the card that replaces Stormbreath Dragon in the Black-Red Dragons deck.
Oh, yeah. As opposed to, like, Sarkhan.
Yeah.
So. Alright, very good. My number 2 card is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. We've already discussed him, so moving on, Bob.
So my number 2 card is a card that I think is totally nuts and broken, and that's Smothering Abomination.
Okay.
So Smothering Abomination is... Let me go find it. I just had it. Now I lost it. It's black. Well, it's called the Void Black. Here it is.
Gotcha.
So it's 2 black, Devoid, flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card, and it is a 4/3. So here's why I think this card's nuts. It says whenever you sacrifice a creature. It's not an activated ability. It's not an ability that depends on this card.
That's a good point.
So,
and it's not even to his upkeep ability.
It's whenever it gets sacked. So here's a few scenarios just to run through your head when you think about this card. So first off, all the Scion tokens can sack themselves. Every last one. Okay, it gets better. This may be Magical Christmas Land, but turn 1, I think there's a Tuka-Tung Thallid in this set. That's the one. It's an Eldrazi. You spend 1, and when it dies, you get a token. You get a 1/1 token. That's
Blister Pod.
Yeah. So you play him turn 1. Turn 2, you play a Hangerback for 1/1. Turn 3, you play a Liliana, Flipwalker, and turn 4, you play this guy. Turn 5, you draw a card. You get a Lily, and whatever you just killed replaces itself.
Yeah.
Oh, and you get a 2/2. Now, think about this with this guy. The first one is cool. The second one is better. The third one is nuts.
Yeah.
If you get to untap with 2 of these guys, you can sack something and draw 2 cards. Yep. Remember, Bone Splinters has been reprinted in this set. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about this. Let's say you've developed your board, it's mid-game, and somebody board wipes you. I'll sack 3 of my Eldrazi tokens, draw 3 cards, and reload my hand.
Oh, yeah. That's a very good point.
I just think the possibilities with this card are endless.
You know what else got reprinted? As I was scrolling down the newest spoilers, Altar's Reap. Sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. So that would be...
So sack a creature, draw 3 cards.
Oh, yeah.
I just think this card is broken.
Yeah.
And he is the only Eldrazi that has flying. So that's another thing to consider.
He's got evasion.
Yeah.
I don't know that he works in like a control shell, but like an Abzan shell, or even maybe a Sultai shell.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of mileage out of this guy.
Yeah, you definitely want green in there. Yeah, maybe even 2 color, just green black.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, Abzan might be good too.
Yep.
All right.
Now we have to mention that we are losing Ulamog, so not Ulamog. We're losing Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth.
Yes.
So the color scheme, while it's getting fixed because of the new lands, that might hurt the early drop of this guy.
True.
If you're trying to shove him in a 3-color deck.
Yep.
But I mean, we do still have all the perfect fixing almost as well, with the fetches and the new duels, the fetchable duels.
Yeah.
So Chad, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is Endless One.
Okay.
So for those of you that haven't seen this card or have been living under a rock, Endless One is cost X. It is a 0/0 Eldrazi, rare. Endless One enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So the reason I chose this was because this is the only creature that has X in the casting cost without any other things connected to it. It's one of those cards you can just pay as much as you want, slam it into it. While we don't have the devotion to help anything out, I don't think Hangerbacker is going to go away, so I don't think a card like this is going to go away either. I think it can be an early big body.
So, like, when do you envision casting this guy? Because, like, if you're saving him to like turn 10, you might as well be casting Ulamog. So what's the sweet spot? What number are you looking to cast this guy to make him the most effective for you? Because at 4, you might as well just be dropping Siege Rhino.
True.
So
I'm thinking 5 is actually the sweet spot. Like I think that if you have some type of ramp, you're obviously going to try and make everything drop a little sooner, and if you get that 5 mana, just dropping this type of body at 5 is really good.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I like this guy myself.
Okay.
But that's just me. Bob, what do you think about Endless One?
He's interesting because they're +1/+1 counters, so that certainly there's probably some interactions there.
True.
I guess hardened scales. But you know, even that is just one more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's so much stuff to do with your mana in this set that like Jason said, it's just kind of where does he fit?
Yeah.
You know? Where does he fit? You know, would you rather play a 4/4 Endless One or a 2/2 Hangerback?
Yeah.
And you know, for instance, I mean, and I guess it's going to depend on the deck and the situation. It's an interesting card.
Okay, fair enough. All right, moving on. My number 1 card is Ob Nixilis Reignited. So we actually had this card spoiled. It was almost a month ago, right, Chad? Because Renee was on the show and we were talking about something else that had been spoiled, and she mentioned the same guy that leaked this card also leaked Ob Nixilis, and it was this exact Ob Nixilis, the one that came to be true. And I remember specifically saying when she was reading this to us, like, if this is real, then this is amazing. And turns out it was real. From the moment he was spoiled, I absolutely loved him. A lot of people were down on him. And then all of a sudden, Shaheen Sarani and a couple other pros write some articles about how good he is, and now all of a sudden everybody believes it. But I've been licking this guy's balls from the day he was spoiled, and he is by far my favorite card in the set. I think he does everything you want out of a Planeswalker in specific types of decks, in more control, mid-rangey type decks. He's just phenomenal. You know, drawing you extra cards for his plus, destroying a creature and protecting himself for the -3, and then the -8. I wish it was a little bit better. It will still end the game fairly soon, but it's not an immediate into the game. So if you don't already have control of the board state, you could still lose if you ultimate with this guy. But overall, I still absolutely love him.
I think the fact that it only takes 3 turns to get there shows a lot.
Yeah, and they've been doing this a lot with Planeswalkers lately, starting them with this real high loyalty.
Well, I mean, look at what they've got to contend with. So you've got a 4/5 Trampler that comes down on turn 4. I mean, Jason, you and I have both played Narset decks, and you and I both know that 6 starting loyalty doesn't mean nothing. She can very easily get wiped right off that board.
Well, yeah, of course, that's coming from the times when Stoke the Flames and everything else will get tons of play. But yeah, no, I get it. So yeah, I do like the fact that he's got nice high starting loyalty. You can plus him up to 6 and draw a card right away. I think that's phenomenal. Or kill a creature. It's just, I think he's just a very solid card, and I expect him to get a lot of play.
Cool.
So my number one was tough because I love Ob Nixilis Reignited, and I think it's a great card. But I chose Gideon Ally of Zendikar. I think this card is, I mean, it's everything you want in almost any deck you're going to put it in. So it's 0. It comes down and immediately protects itself. No problem. And it's a 2/2. It's an ally, which means something in this set.
Yeah.
Its +1 is the normal +1 we've seen off Gideon. Turns him into a guy and bashes in. And you can ultimate him the turn you drop him.
Yes.
He's a 4 casting cost Anthem, which, looking at the decks that are probably going to survive rotation, is just fine. I mean,
it's not the worst thing you can be doing.
I mean, a turn 3 Secure the Waste into a turn 4 Gideon is not the worst 2 turns you could ever spend your mana on. I think, I also think just if you look at playing him out, and there have been various articles written on this, and it's obviously not an original idea. I mean, you drop him, you plus him up turn 1, even if you don't attack with him. You'd be silly not to, but I mean, you just plus him up, and then the next turn, if you've got stuff to protect him, you minus him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And life that becomes very real very quickly on any board. So I just think no matter what deck uses him, it's got something for everybody, and he's a very, very well-made utilitarian card.
Yeah, and depending on if Allies becomes a thing in Standard, he could be a cornerstone of that deck, and he could even be a 4 of in an Ally deck in Standard.
Well, and just keep this in mind. The ally ability is called what's the new ally ability?
Rally.
Rally.
Yeah.
And it's whenever an ally enters the battlefield, and his +1 makes him a 5/5 ally.
Well, but that does not count as entering the battlefield, though. He's already.
Yeah.
But his 0 does.
That's what I wanted to say. Is 0. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
His +1. His 0 spits out creatures that trigger that EOT every turn.
And you know where I think he may end up making a surprise jump is in Modern, because Naya Allies has always been a fringe player in Modern. I've played it before in Modern on many of occasions, and he, along with a couple of the other ally cards in this set, could be what takes Allies to like maybe a tier 1.5 deck in Modern.
There's a black-white tokens deck that's been out there for a long time too that sees a lot of play. I think Eric Froelich just played it in a big tournament a couple weeks ago in Modern, and this it basically kind of tops out at 3.
Yeah.
With some Convoke, but I mean, this guy's not out of the realm of playability for a deck like that either, with an Anthem effect.
Yeah, well, I know, and in the Modern Allies, my curve topped at 4 with the, I think it was the Talus Paladin. I think he's 4. So Gideon could take that place. But yeah, I think he's very playable in both Standard and Modern, and yeah, keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I think the other good thing is if you draw your 7 cards and you have 2 of them in hand, it's not something that you want to ship, because one of them is just an Anthem effect. The second one you can drop and just go off.
I'm not saying that after he was spoiled, I went and bought all the allies for like $25 as a playset. I'm not saying that, but
right,
might be something you want to do.
Yeah, no, I've already had all of my allies, so I'm good. The old allies. Yeah. All right, Chad, what's your number 1?
As I said earlier, my number 1 was Ulamog, and as we've said, we've talked about that enough, so
okay,
there we go.
And again, we could have spent the whole episode and then some talking about all the new spoilers, but there's so many cards out there. It's just too many to name. I do want to, if you guys will indulge me though, I do want to make mention of one other card that did not make my top 5 list, but it's another card I'm going to be playing in Modern. If you've been following my YouTube channel at all, you know I play a Turbo Time Warp deck in Modern on occasion. And part the Water Veil was spoiled, and it is another Time Warp effect. It is 4 blue, and take an extra turn after this one and exile it, but it also has Awaken 6 for 9, where you can turn one of your lands into a 6/6 creature, which is absolutely perfect for my Turbo Time Warp deck, because as I'm taking turns over and over and over again, I just hit one of these with an Awaken trigger, and then keep taking all my extra turns, and then swinging in with a 6/6 every turn. And that's just another way to win the game.
So you don't like the Heroic deck. You're not a Mono Red fan, but you'll play this in Modern? You're the biggest hypocrite I've known. It's just a horrible person.
I know, I am. And yeah,
I've played against you with that deck. It's horrific.
It is, and you know, whenever I play it online, if like I can't play it in the practice room, like tournament practice room online, because
I can't
the second somebody sees what I'm playing, they just immediately concede and go on to a new game. The only way I can play that deck online is if I'm playing in like a paid tournament, because everybody else would just scoop and leave.
I'd report you if I was playing you in the tournament.
So that ends our Battle for Zendikar spoilers. Next week, I think we'll, in addition to having our pre-release updates, like how we did in our pre-releases and everything, I think we're going to start presenting some brews, some Battle for Zendikar brews from us, and also from listeners. Listeners, if you want us to talk about your post-rotation lists, send us an email. The email is in the show notes. You can go to the Facebook group, post it there, and we'll talk about some lists on the show next week. In the meantime, let's go ahead and continue our Farewell to Theros segment. We've been doing this every week. So far we've covered colorless, gold, red, and white, and now we are moving on to green. So the Theros block in M15 brought us a lot of good quality green cards. In fact, I think this was maybe a month or two ago, we even said that green was the best color in Standard, period, at the time. Because green had just so many good quality cards. Do you guys agree that green might have been the best color over the last 2 years?
Out of the color pie, it was the one that got the most pieces eaten. Definitely.
Yeah, they definitely skimped on it in Origins for sure. But
yeah, it didn't get nearly as much love. But
yeah, no, I mean it has some really powerful cards.
Yep, so like we have been doing the last couple of weeks, we compiled a top 10 list. So we're going to go through our top 10 list of green cards from the Theros block and M15. And Bob, since you are our special guest, we'll let you start with number 10.
Okay, number 10 is a reprint of a card from the original Ravnica block, and that is Court of Calling. So, for those of you that don't know Court of Calling, it's basically, what is it, green and X? And,
I think it's triple green X.
Or triple green X, rather, sorry.
Yeah.
Card. And it's an instant, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And you basically can go and search for a card for that cost.
Yeah, any creature card. It doesn't even have to be green, because I think that was the restriction of the one green X card. Oh god, from the Scars block.
Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that was, you were limited to grabbing a green creature with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and this thing has, I should mention, this thing also has Convoke, which is also huge.
Yeah, which is, if it didn't have Convoke, it'd be far worse.
Mm-hmm.
Even as an instant.
I mean, so this card, late game, if your big finisher in your deck got removed, this was the card that went and found it for you at the end of your opponent's turn and just brought it right back.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning too that before this card was reprinted in M15, this was like it was pushing $40.
Yeah.
Because it was getting so much play in Modern. It was getting play in the Modern pod list. Even though they already had Birthing Pod, they still wanted Court of Calling to just kind of help, get out whatever it is they needed to win the game. And
because that deck wasn't, just incestuous as it was.
Well, yeah, it is what it is. I'm just saying that this card was really expensive and really good before this reprinting, and the reprint helped the price, but I'm already starting to see a little bit of a tick back up. And if you have any inclination to play this in Modern, get them soon.
Yeah, coming from a game store owner and somebody that does this for a semi-living, my partner's more the managing guy, but if you're going to pick up any post-rotation card, this is definitely one to get a play set up, because it will hold value. You will use it if you play any Eternal format.
And even like casual formats like Commander, stuff like that. It's huge in those kind of decks.
Tiny leaders?
Yeah, that's true. Legal and tiny leaders. So, number 9, Chad.
Number 9, we have Nylea, God of the Hunt. Now, she saw a lot of fringe play, but she was basically in the big mono green devotion decks where you were able to use Nykthos to pump into her ability. She gave your Genesis Hydra, that is way too big to be mentioned, trample, and it was just one of those cards that put together all the green decks, which kind of put it over the top.
Yeah, and she was played a lot more before Cons came out than she was afterwards. Like, after Cons hit, she was really kind of an afterthought. I think a couple of Green Devotion decks tried to still splash her, but for the most part, she just fell off at that point.
Yeah, she didn't see a lot of play after that.
Yep. Number 8 is Nissa Worldwaker. This was a card... Chad and I think, had a lot of arguments about her. I was not a fan of her when she was first spoiled. I'm like, this card's kind of dumb. It's expensive. Doesn't really do a whole lot. Well, I admit I was wrong. She ended up being really good again before the Cons block came out. After she came out in M15, a lot of green decks were just splashing her in the main, like multiple copies in the main, and it was a really solid card. Great against control. But
oh god, being a control player, watching people board this in and actually watching it resolve is just such a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, and most of the time, like, you're not doing any of her other abilities beyond making your creatures lands, and that's why I think she's not higher on this list, because that's the only ability of hers that ever really got used. Like, I never saw anybody ultimate her. Ever, the entire time she was in Standard. Rarely ever saw anybody use the untap however many amounts of forests you control. It was always just land her, start turning your lands into creatures.
Yeah.
So if her other abilities got more use, then I guess we'd rank her higher, but because she was very narrow in what people were doing with her, that's why she's only number 8. But still a very solid card.
Yeah, makes sense.
Number 7 is Eidolon of Blossom. So this is a card that saw some fringe play, but really came into its own with the Constellation deck.
Yes.
That ran about 6 months ago and has run kind of all the way up until Origins. It got kind of a rebirth when Origins first came out. I don't think it really got any other solid footing. It popped up here and there, but just a solid card. I mean, and it's funny, you look at it, it's a 2/2 for 4.
Yeah.
Draws you a card when it comes in, so it replaces itself. But I remember looking at this card and not thinking much of it, and then I remember watching coverage the first time I saw the Constellation deck get played, and just thinking how gross this thing was. I mean, and then I remember the game I saw it. Like, the guy had like 3 of them out, and it just got ridiculous. I mean, my partner Dick Burns actually went to the finals of a PTQ with that deck, and had to actually murderous cut his own Eidolon because he was going to deck himself. I mean, that's
a good
just
one.
how nuts this thing gets.
Yeah, and it's like you said, looking at it just in a vacuum, a 2/2 for 4 that just draws you a card is not that great, but it's when he survives a turn.
Yeah.
When you get to untap with him, and then get to start casting more enchantment creatures or more enchantments, that's when he becomes really good. And that's the thing you don't really see when you're just trying to analyze him as a card. And yeah, if he goes like unkilled for a turn, he's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I paid horribly when that deck came out and I was playing blue-white control, because I just, alright, it draws you a card, whatever. I mean, I don't want you getting card advantage, but I really want your Courser dead. So on, my turn 4, I'm going to get rid of your Courser. And it's like, nope, should have let the Courser stay. This thing has to die immediately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I made that mistake so many times.
Yeah, and people eventually caught on. They did, and if they saw the Eidolon, they would kill it if they could. And then they were in trouble if they couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 6.
Moving on to number 6, we have Hornet Queen. This was the card that everybody wanted to see, not coming from their hand, but coming from their graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
This card was just so good. It was almost like the Green Elspeth. That's what I would call it.
Yeah.
Because essentially it gets out, what is it, four creatures, including
4
itself?
1/1 flyers with Death Touch. Yep.
There are decks that if you played Hornet Queen, they couldn't beat it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there were
could never handle it.
And there were times when in Standard during the metagame where just every deck couldn't beat it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you could get on that curve and play it, very often in the whip decks, I mean, it was gross.
Yeah. And all I have to say is thank God this card was not legal during the time when like Restoration Angel was legal also.
Could you imagine a green-white deck with Hornet Queen and then Gideon?
Good stuff. All right, next card is another just solid powerhouse from the same set as Hornet Queen, Genesis Hydra.
Oh yeah.
Genesis Hydra was green X, and he came in with what, X +1/+1 counters on him, and then you also got to search the top X cards of your library and put a card with casting cost X or less onto the battlefield. Very solid, and the fact that you got that trigger on cast and not on enter the battlefield is what made him really good. Because if you were playing against Control, even if they countered the Genesis Hydra himself, you still got whatever permanent it was that you found looking through your top cards. And then a lot of the times, especially after he first came out, they'd cast him for 5, and they'd grab their Nissa and they'd just slam her down, and there was nothing you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, just a solid 2 or more for 1. In a time when Green Devotion was big, a lot of people were casting Genesis Hydras for 10 or more and just getting their pick of whatever they wanted from their deck. Just a fantastic card.
I very, very succinctly remember Ed Morgan Nykthosing his board, Genesis Hydraing, and pulling, and Jason, you'll appreciate this, the what's that? The 10th drop Colossus.
Oh, the Colossus from the Theros block. What was that?
Yeah.
called?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
It's like Colossus of Akros or something.
Yeah, Colossus of Akros, and then using the remaining mana, just because, I mean, why waste it, to monstrous the thing. The turn it came into play. What did I,
Shout out to Ed Morgan, our local brewer. Good guy, and yeah, he comes up with some of the most original, just out of left field decks. It's good times.
2020 Indestructible.
Yeah.
I'll let you figure out who won that.
Seems pretty good. Is it Chad next?
Rob's turn next. It's
yeah. Okay.
Bob's,
So number 4 is Pelucranos, the World Eater.
Mm-hmm.
So a 4/4 for 5 is already pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Where this little Hydra really came into his own is, with Nykthos, because his ability, and I'll get it up here on the screen so I can just not read this incorrectly like I did the last one. So his monstrous ability is XX and a green, and when he becomes monstrous, he deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponent controls. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Pelucranos. So this was Green's board wipe. Sounds expensive. It is expensive, but once you got a any sort of devotion deck up and running,
Oh yeah.
this guy basically could wrath your board and then live through it. That was the nutsoid thing. I mean, he was monstrous, and particularly in a lot of like the green-white Mastery of the Unseen decks, this guy got totally out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember him being played one of the first times I ever saw one of those decks, and going, it's a Pelucranos. I've seen him before. I'll get rid of him next turn, and then my opponent the next turn just wrathing my board out with him because I just didn't do the math right.
Yeah, and that's what it came down to. A lot of players that played Devotion used Pelucranos as like a math that could trick the opponent into thinking that something else was happening, and were able to take the games off of that. The only downside to him, but I don't think it was a downside just because he had the monstrous, was that he didn't have trample.
Yeah.
Yeah. God,
well,
just imagine.
If you're monstrous-ing him, you're either getting rid of something you really, really care about, or just getting rid of everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, towards the end, that's all people were using him for, was just board wipes. Just clearing the path so all the rest of your big stuff could just swing in and kill your opponent.
Exactly.
Yep. Pretty sick. Alright, Chad, what's next?
Number 3, we mentioned him earlier, Satyr Wayfinder. Still sticking around, still putting creatures in their opponent's graveyard so they can come back, or so they can fill out their hand a little better, finding them that mana. This guy, I'm going to be sad to see him go.
Yeah,
he was like a workhorse in Standard for a long time.
Yeah, and he did multiple things. Like, he would fuel Delve. He would give fuel for your Den Protector. He would fuel your graveyard for Reanimator decks back when the
Sultai Reanimator,
the Whip of Erebos decks were big.
Yeah.
You know, so he served so many different purposes. The fact that he was a 2-drop gave these decks an early blocker against like your aggressive decks. Just very solid. Common, reprinted in M15 after his initial printing in Theros.
I used him in my 5-color dragons, just so that I could find the Haven of the Spirit Dragon and get the dragon that he put into the yard. Yeah, fun guy to play with.
I mean, this guy saw play in everything from. I mean, he even saw play in a Sultai control deck.
Yeah.
He was an early blocker. He helped you flesh out your curve.
Yeah.
And he saw play all the way up into Origins. He let you get a turn 3 flip Jace.
Yep.
Turn 2 you play Jace. Turn 3 you drop a Wayfinder, and then tap Jace and flip it.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure he was in that second place deck in the Star City, right?
He was
in that Sultai control.
He was.
So there you go. Really good. I mean,
not to mention he's a 1/1 early blocker for red. So
yeah. He kills a lot of those red creatures.
Yeah.
So, and then number 2, we kind of lumped 3 guys together into one because green likes its mana dorks. So we've got Voyaging Satyr, Elvish Mystic, and then of course the real number 2 is Sylvan Caryatid. Mana dorks have been a cornerstone of all green decks since the beginning of Magic with Birds of Paradise and Llanowar Elves.
Yeah.
And I think Sylvan Caryatid was phenomenal because we were talking about this before we started recording. We've fairly recently had Birds of Paradise legal in Standard, and one of the problems with playing Birds of Paradise is he almost always died right after you put him out, at least on turn 1.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just an early target. You play turn 1 Birds of Paradise, 50% of the time you never get to untap with him because your opponent's killing them right away. But with Sylvan Caryatid, he's got hexproof. So granted, you have to cast him on turn 2, but you're going to get to use him unless your opponent does something wacky like Anger of the Gods. But
he's a great blocker.
Yeah, he's an 0/3 with hexproof, so he can block a lot of those mono red creatures. He's just phenomenal. He gives you great ramp. Tap him for any color. Just really, really solid. But honorable mention, of course, to Elvish Mystic and Voyaging Satyr, especially, who really help fuel those mono green devotion decks because you could use him to untap Nykthos to keep generating more and more and more mana.
Yeah.
And it's really worth noting that Elvish Mystic is a turn 1 mana dork, and that's gone. There's some turn 2 mana dorks post rotation that you get to play, Rattleclaw Mystic, a couple others, but there's no more Forest Elvish Mystic go.
No.
Yeah.
So that's big. It changes the entire curve of how ramp works.
Yeah, the only thing that we have that's even remotely close to that is that stupid Renown guy. And he's not playable. I could never justify playing that guy in a deck.
The problem is he can never be a turn 1 mana dork only because he has to deal damage before he can tap for mana.
And he doesn't get vigilance until after he becomes Renowned.
Exactly.
Correct. So he's might as well just be a turn 2 mana dork.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, and then number 1.
Drumroll, please, is Courser of Kruphix. Is anyone surprised? I mean, this card, wow. So, 2/4 for 3. Just start there. Passes the vanilla test pretty easily. And then, on top of that, you reveal the top. You play with the top card of your library revealed, and if it's a land, you can play it, and you gain a life. So when
you gain a life anytime you get a land.
Anytime you play a land, right? So I mean, just from a purely playing perspective, it's a really strange mechanic that doesn't get used a lot. Playing with your top card of your library revealed. There's a couple other cards that do that. He's incidental life gain. When it comes to one of the big decks that's dominated the format for the last year, Abzan, this is the guy, at least in my opinion, you guys may certainly disagree, that really he's kind of the glue that put that deck together, because the deck's weakness is its mana base. It has a very, very intensive mana base that you have to hit.
Yep. And
this is the guy that let you smooth that out to get your turn 4 Siege Rhino. And one of the questions I asked earlier before we started the show was, so how good is Siege Rhino on turn 5 or 6? Is he still that good? And he may be, because without Courser, I think you're going to see a lot less turn 4 Siege Rhinos.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, he just played so much of a role in Standard. The other interesting thing was I was listening to a podcast that the guys in Limited and Constructed Resources do, and they mentioned him in their rotation podcast. And those guys do coverage. And they were really happy to see him go, interestingly enough, because they said, you know, it's just a nightmare doing coverage with this guy. Because,
how so?
Because if he dies, the card has to flip back over, and if he's in play and they don't flip,
and also when they said when it got to grindy matches, people had, if you had 2 coursers out, you know, like 2 Abzan mirror matches and a ground out, people had perfect information of what was in each other's hand.
Yeah,
and that,
I think that was
makes
the big downfall.
It makes the game just drag because you know exactly what your opponent's got all the time. I mean, as a control player, I'd sometimes let this little guy stick around for a little bit because the information was really helpful. If I had a choice and it was 50-50, get rid of him or something else, usually pick the other thing because, you know, I'll take some free info. It's important.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem is the longer he stays on the board, the more card advantage he's gaining. Because, you know, he's allowing them to play that land off the top instead of a land from their hand or whatever.
And with Scry, that helped a ton.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Because having a Courser on board and then playing a Scry land after that to either Scry into a land or not. And a lot of times, I don't know how much you guys have actually played with Courser, but a lot of times I would play him on turn 4, praying to God he flipped a land just so I could make my 4th land drop. Because I've had many a games that I've gone where, like, I just don't have a 4th land, but I have a Courser. So hopefully if I land him and he flips a land, then I can actually make my 4th land drop.
So, yeah, while he is going, I do feel like a lot of people are going to replace him with Nissa, the 3-drop Nissa creature, because it's going to net you that land. It won't stay out as long, but it also has some long-term value, just like Courser did.
Yeah, and the new Nissa is really good, but I don't know. I think Courser is just strictly a better card.
I agree.
And yeah, he will be missed, and I just want to say that for every Nissa World Waker that I say is garbage during preview season, the second I saw Courser spoiled, I'm like, this card is phenomenal. Why are you people not seeing this? And I got my playset right away, and then he spiked not long after that, so.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, while we went through the top 10s, feel free to message us back. We have some honorable mentions.
Yes.
Arbor Colossus always saw sideboard play, taking care of the dragons in the late game or
and
the
that was
late
the thing
rotation.
Too. Yeah, he got a resurgence when dragons became a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, at least in sideboards, if not in the main.
He's the perfect vanilla creature that everybody wants to have. Yeah. And in Devotion, he just fueled that to the max.
Yep.
Back to Nature, another stable card in the sideboard because it was taking care of almost every Constellation deck that you were playing against. We have Boon Satyr, where everybody loves playing Flash, and green having Flash isn't all too often.
Yeah, and Boon Satyr, I think he was a candidate for the top 10, but we just ran out of spots because, again, he was a card that before cons, he got a lot of play, and even after cons, he still got some, but he was a big player for a while.
Yeah.
And this was, Boon Satyr lets you trigger ferocious triggers, which back when Rug Teamer was trying to kind of find its way, became very helpful.
Yeah.
You know, at instant speed.
Yep.
Jason, you want to mention the next card? I know you played with that a little bit.
Bow of Nylea?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bow of Nylea is interesting because it had a really cool interaction with Polukranos that I know a lot of people were taking advantage of, and I actually played a green Devotion deck at the first Star City Open after cons came out, and I was playing Bow of Nylea in the main with Polukranos, attacking with Polukranos, trigger on the bow, and then activating Polukranos to like ping all of my opponent's creatures, and that actually won me a game against Heroic because that was the only way I was able to deal with his creatures. It was pretty funny.
That must have made like your month.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Bow of Nylea is really good, and the fact that it's got 4 modes on it, like you can tap it and do one of 4 things or no, 3 things, but the 4th mode is the fact that it gives your attacking creatures death touch is pretty good.
Yeah.
So it does a lot of stuff in one little card.
Moving on. Go ahead, Bob.
So the next one we have is Karametra's Alkalite, which, God, I forget what this card does.
So this was the card that kind of fueled the
right.
Teamer Ascendancy deck.
Yes, right. So it's tap, add an amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. So yeah, it fueled the Teamer Ascendancy combo that saw some play in some tournaments for a couple of weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Mistcutter Hydra, which is the bane of
that's that's the ultimate sideboard card for control. It's
whenever I had that played, I'd be like, who plays this card anymore? Really?
That's what it became too, because it was getting so much play, and then it just fell off the radar.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, because control fell off the radar. Yeah, we went through a period of a long time during the cons block where control was not a thing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a hard time.
Yeah.
Go for it, Jason.
Then we've got Strength of the Fallen. That's the Constellation enchantment, right? That has something to do with graveyards.
Yeah, it gives every time a Constellation trigger happens, it gives +1/+1 equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard.
Right.
And it was one of those. I mean, this even saw play at the Pro Tour, so this was one of those decks that was very, hey, maybe I can use this as a combo piece. It was very interesting.
People tried to make it work. I mean, it definitely saw some play, but I don't think it ever really found a home.
Yeah, I know I played against it a couple times on Magic Online, but never made the biggest splash overall. But Commune with the Gods did.
Yeah.
Commune with the Gods was another fuel card for like your Reanimator style decks. And that one, what did it let you get, a land or an enchantment?
It was a creature.
Creature or enchantment. Yeah.
Okay, into your hand. And then everything else into your graveyard.
You know, and it was a May ability, so if you just wanted 5 cards in the yard, you could just toss all 5 and didn't have to take a thing.
Yeah, and finding a Whip of Erebos with this was what you were going for most of the time.
Yeah. Pick the whip, put everything else in the graveyard, start reanimating stuff.
Good addition, though. You can also find a Courser with this, so that's not bad.
Not anymore, you can't.
Yeah. And that, I think, is it for the honorable mentions. Again, green was really good before cons came out, like mono green, the mono green devotion lists. It did have a tough time against the mono black lists, but I think it had a better matchup against the mono blue. But then once cons hit, green kind of became part of Abzan. Very rarely would you see like the mono green list. They were still around, but after cons it was all about Abzan at that point. But green was still a big part of it, with cards like Courser, sometimes Satyr Wayfinder, Pelucranos, other cards like that. But green was definitely a very important color from the Theros block that had, an impact for 2 years.
Agreed.
On Standard.
Yeah.
And that is that. Speaking of post-rotation, we've got Battle for Zendikar pre-release this coming weekend. Now, Bob, obviously you've got to have some... Well, actually, no, you said you're not going to be around, are you?
No, I mean, so Gamers Vault will be having our pre-release, and there's only one. We have one midnight pre-release because we're, according to Wizards and News Store, and they only give us 37 pre-release packages. So,
oh, really? So, and that's the only pre-release you guys get, huh? Is the midnight?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's too bad.
We're like, there's different levels with Wizards, and when we got the pre-release was right after we got our sanctioning, and so even though since then we're at one of the top tier levels as a store, they don't care, or they didn't care at that point, even though we told them we'd sell out at 37 in less than a week. So I will not be there. I unfortunately have to travel for business, so I have no pre-release plans whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I know what that's all about, so I've spent a lot of time on the road this year. I am most definitely going to Gamers Vault for the midnight pre-release on Friday.
Nice.
And then Chad and I'm assuming we're still planning on doing our
5:30
Two-headed
Sunday.
giant, right?
Yeah, 5:30 or 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock or 5:30 Sunday.
Yep. Yeah, Chad and I, as we've talked about on the show many a times, we always do a two-headed giant pre-release, and we almost always win. We won the last one that we were in for Origins.
Yeah.
We won the one at the Grand Prix. Did we do one for Dragons? I don't know if we did one for Dragons.
No, I think there were a couple that we had to stop based off
Yeah.
of work plans, things like that.
Yeah, so we're expecting to continue our dominance into this weekend. Hopefully I don't jinx us, but besides that...
We've talked about it before. We'll be fine.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this and I'm curious, like, I think you can build some really sick decks in two-headed giant sealed.
There are a lot of cards that say opponents.
Yeah.
So there's that. There are a lot of colors that work well together, and with everything being colorless, you really don't have to worry about a mana base that bad.
Nope. And there are no major tournaments anywhere, I don't think, next weekend. I don't think there are any Grand Prix. I don't think there's definitely not any Star City Opens.
No.
Because typically they don't run any tournaments on pre-release weekend.
Correct.
And that's that. Now, Bob, we were talking before. You know how we had Bob and Dick, the owners of Gamers Vault, on several episodes ago. They were telling us how things were going, getting the store ramped up, because the store wasn't actually open at the time. So one thing I wanted to do was kind of talk to those guys and find out how things have gone since they've opened. And one thing that Bob had recommended was maybe soliciting questions from the listeners and bringing Bob back for another episode, like maybe next week or the week after, depending on what your travel schedule is, and kind of get a feel.
Next week.
Okay, and then just kind of get a feel for how the store's doing now. Now that you're open, like, what are some of the pitfalls you've seen since opening, since the last time we talked, and things like that. And we definitely want to solicit some questions from the listeners. So if you have any questions for Bob or Dick, specifically about, like, business, not necessarily like, oh, well, how much money do you guys make every month?
Yeah.
But, like, if you have any, like, Magic-specific questions for a store owner, like, send them in. We'll bring Bob back on the show, and we'll ask him all these questions and just kind of get an update on how Gamers Vault is doing and everything else like that. Bob, you got anything to add?
Well, to answer the first question you gave, Jason, we make a ton of money. We have a vault like Scrooge McDuck, and Dick and I swim in it every night.
Just swimming in gold?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to figure out which Ferrari we each want to get. We haven't settled on it yet. Dick thinks that yellow is a good color. I think that looks like a giant banana, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you guys have questions about the
process,
the behind the scenes, if you will, of running a store, we're certainly happy to answer them. I mean, I would just caution you. I mean, look, we're not going to sit here and tell you what every margin is and all that stuff. There's some stuff we gotta keep behind the veil. But in general, I mean, pitfalls. If anybody's thinking about doing this or wants to do something like this in the future, we can certainly talk about mistakes. We made a bunch of them. We still make them every day.
And that's good. See, that's actually the kind of stuff I'd like to hear.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, I can share some horror stories if you want. And if you do have questions, I would urge you to get them in earlier rather than later, so my partner and I can sit down and talk about them and make sure we give you kind of a full view. Because Dick and my partnership is pretty interesting. Dick runs the store and he's kind of the front end, and I do our back end stuff. So I handle, I have another job and I handle, our finance end and that sort of thing.
Cool.
So, if you have questions, it's good that if he and I can talk about them, that way we can give you both perspectives on it.
Makes sense.
Cool. So, yeah, if you've got any questions, please, you can email us. Our email is in the show notes. You can join the Facebook group and post them there, because we've got 220 people now in the Facebook group.
Yeah, still going.
And we've got people talking on there every day. And just, send us any questions, and we'll address those. I guess next week we'll try and have you back, because, we still have no ETA on Renee's return. So we'll go ahead and plan for that. And, I'd be really curious to see, like what your perspective is now compared to when we had you guys on the first time. And also for next week, like we said, we'll talk about our pre-releases. We're gonna do some deck brewing. Like Chad, I'm sure you've got some deck ideas.
Yeah,
around.
Yeah, I'm big on the Eldrazi, so I'll have something for them.
Yep, I'm brewing up both a blue-black control and an Esper control list, so I'll bring both of my lists on next week, and we'll talk about those. Bob, if you've got anything you're brewing up, by all means, bring it on.
Yeah, I'm looking at Esper control. I really want to build a deck around Smothering Abomination. I just think that guy's off the chain.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure, like all the pros that write for Star City, TCG Player, and all those are going to have a ton of deck lists that they're going to be posting. So we'll scour those and see if there's anything that catches our eye that we may want to talk about on the show. But there's not going to be any tournaments to cover, so it's really just going to be talking about pre-release, talking about deck brewing, talking about the store. But we will be back here. We'll be streaming live again, and keep an eye out for that. I'm assuming we'll shoot for Sunday or Monday. What do you think, Chad? What's your...
It will be Monday next
Monday
week.
of next week, okay. Because we kind of have to work around Chad's schedule.
My stupid schedule.
Yes, I know. It's always his fault.
And as usual, everybody that stopped by on the Twitch channel, thanks for following and thanks for coming in and joining us. Unfortunately, we weren't able to ask any questions this week, but like Jason was saying, if you have questions and you just want to ask them on the cast as we're doing it, then feel free to do that as well.
Yep. So with that, you guys got any shout-outs or final thoughts? Bob, I'll give you the floor first.
Sacrificing creatures and drawing cards is amazing.
Okay, fair enough.
Will be amazing going forward.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Chad, you got anything?
No, we're looking forward to doing this every week and look forward to seeing things on the YouTube page.
Yep. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'm assuming we'll have the YouTube channel in the show notes.
Yeah.
Well, obviously Chad's Twitch channel is always in the show notes, and then check us out on the Facebook group. Until then, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week. See ya.
See ya.
Later.
We'll be back. And done.
Yeah, everybody
All right.
on Twitch, thanks for stopping by. I am going to be closing the stream so that I can post it onto YouTube ASAP.
Yeah, and do me a favor, Chad. Can you send me a link to your YouTube channel in like the Facebook chat?
Yeah, we'll do.
Just so I can put it in the show notes and do that